Hey. Good morning, YouTube. What's up, everybody? I hope you're safe and healthy and happy and doing okay. I'm coming at you today with another full review of a shoe that is pretty special to me because I just ran the Chicago Marathon in it, and that is the Hoka Bondi X. In a sea of Alpha Flies and Next Percent and Endorphin Pros, there I was with my Bondi X. Although I will say I did see a couple other people with this shoe, and Mike Wardian, who is sponsored by Hoka, wore this in the marathon as well. It's a lot dirtier after I ran the marathon in it. I'll tell you that. This shoe, believe it or not, used to be white, not like gray. I have a lot of thoughts about it. I have a lot of opinions about it, and we're gonna get to all of that today, right here in this video. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any new footage of me in this shoe except for this.
Oh, Emily! Oh my God, the poor thing.
So there won't be the running montage that you're used to seeing, but bear with me because I'm gonna get back on the saddle very, very soon and start running again. So we're gonna skip the running montage today and just get straight into it. You comfortable now? Of course, I do want to let you know that this shoe was sent to me by Hoka. However, they're not telling me what to say. They're not going to see this before you, and all of my opinions, as always, about this special shoe are my own. Now, if you're unfamiliar with how I structure my floor views, let me give you a rundown. First, we're gonna start with the specs, then we're gonna talk about the upper, the midsole, the outsole, the pricing of the shoe, and then we're gonna have my conclusion. And that's where I'm gonna rate it out of 5 stars. So if it's the best shoe I've ever worn and I never wanna take it off my foot, it's gonna be 5 stars. And if it's the worst shoe I've ever worn and I never wanna wear it again, it's gonna be 1 star. Then at the end, I'll throw up a screen with the pros and the cons so you can get a visual idea of what I liked and what I disliked. The Bondi X comes in at 9.1 ounces for a women's size 7, but for my size, 10.5 women's, the shoe comes in at 10.6 ounces. This shoe has a 5mm drop, but it varies between men and women's shoes. Doesn't like that. So for women, the 5mm drop is 31mm of stack in the heel and 26mm in the forefoot. And for men, we have 33mm in the heel and 28 in the forefoot. I'm gonna give the Bondi X a true to size, but with the warning that Hoka sizing can be a bit strange for some people. This is a 10.5 for me, which is my normal size. And I would say that it is true to size, although I do have a substantial amount of room up here in the forefoot. So do with that information what you want. If you want to order 2 different sizes of this shoe and see which one fits best, return the one that doesn't, I would recommend that. Or if you can try this out in the store, something else I would recommend as well. So in this upper, Hoka is using an engineered mesh. It's kind of unlike anything that I've seen from Hoka so far. I would say it's a mix between the Bondi X and the Carbon X, which is basically the whole point of this shoe. In the midfoot, we don't have a ton of overlays. We have the Hoka logo, which I suppose acts like one. But if you can look closely into this shoe, you'll see that the upper almost looks like 2 layers. And under that first layer is what appears to be another layer acting to give the shoe a little bit more structure in the midfoot. And if we go to the back, the heel counter is pretty sturdy here, and we have a nice big old pull tab for all of you pull tab fans out there. The upper of this shoe surprised me. I was a little bit worried about taking this out for marathon day because in Chicago, it was unseasonably warm on race day. Of course. Before the marathon, my experience was that this shoe is somewhat breathable, but it's really not going to be your most breathable shoe on the market. In Chicago, however, in the Windy City, this shoe did have some decent amount of airflow through that forefoot. So I was pretty excited about that because I was needing some cool down for sure. There's plenty of room in that forefoot and in that midfoot area. When I'm running, and for a long time in especially like humid conditions, you know, my feet tend to swell. So I didn't feel crammed into this shoe in those later miles when I was really feeling it. I had just enough room still, even at the very end. Now, if you like a slightly snugger fit, then you might not love the way this feels up top, but I did. One thing I don't really like about the Bondi X's upper is the tongue. I mentioned this in the first run impressions. The tongue for my shoe just does not come up high enough. I mean, I'm literally pulling it. You can barely see it. This is as high as it goes up. So the problem with this is that the laces end up being over the tongue and on my sock almost. And I think that issue contributes to a little bit of heel slipping back here, ever so slight, really not a deal breaker for me. But I think if I could get that tongue to come up a little bit more, then I could maybe cinch the laces down just a bit more and get a more locked down feel. And one more thing to nitpick, I don't know if this is really an upper problem, but I'm just gonna say it here anyway. It depends what sock I wear with this shoe, and a lot of other Hokas recently, now that I think about it. But depending on the sock that I wear, I do sometimes feel a little bit of a hot spot on the ball of my foot, right about here. I just really don't know if a thicker sock and this shoe mesh well together for my foot. But other than that, I'm impressed with this upper. It really held its own out there on the Chicago Marathon course, and it really doesn't look beat up. I mean, it looks dirty as all heck, but there's really no fraying here, no holes in the upper, obviously. I was out there for 4 hours and 45 minutes, and I didn't get a single blister, a single hot spot, and no irritation from this shoe at all. Hoka is using their compression molded EVA material, which is 30% softer than traditional EVA. And to me, this shoe feels a lot softer than your traditional standard Bondi 7. Sandwiched in between these pillowy layers is a carbon fiber plate. And that's not all. The shoe also has an early stage meta rocker, which is basically just a technology to help you roll forward in your stride. The ride of the shoe really is unique to any of the other carbon plated shoes that I've felt before. And honestly, it's unique to Hoka as well. Like I said, this definitely feels softer than the traditional Bondi. It feels a little bit more pillowy. You are gonna sink into that foam just a bit, but the carbon fiber plate and the early stage meta rocker really do help you to not sink down into that foam like quicksand and get up on your toes and into your next stride, no matter how much you're struggling out there on the course. Trust me, I know. Now, if you're like me and you've tried the Next Percent, you've tried the Alpha Fly, you've tried the Endorphin Pro, and you just don't think that your legs and your feet are gonna feel comfortable and good after 26.2 miles of pounding on those shoes, then I would highly suggest taking a look at this. Like I said, yeah, it's not exactly like the other super shoes on the market. In fact, I'm not really sure that I would classify this as a super shoe. But this does offer and deliver something that those shoes do not. And that's real, true comfort. The Bondi X is gonna give you that daily trainer feel, but with that pop and that oomph that you need for race day. After 26.2 miles straight in the Bondi X, my legs hurt, obviously. I mean, I think that's pretty normal. But my feet, while they were a little bit tired, felt pretty good. And I feel like had I worn something like the Next Percent, my feet would have been destroyed by the end of it. Another thing that I noticed about this shoe was while I was out there for so long just pounding the pavement and compressing the midsole, is that it really didn't compress too much and feel super dead by the end of it. I feel like it held its life for the entire run. And not to mention, I also had about, probably over 50 miles by the time I took it to Chicago. So already we're at probably like 75, 80 miles in this shoe, and it still feels pretty fresh. The one thing I'll nitpick about it is that it is heavy. In fact, it's heavier than my Bondi 7. So that's not great, especially for a shoe that you're gonna wanna race in. I will tell you that at the end of the run where this shoe could have potentially felt heavy, I didn't really feel it. I mean, my whole body felt heavy, to be honest with you. For a shoe that you're gonna charge this amount of money for, which we'll get to, and it has a carbon plate, I think that we could afford to make this a little bit lighter next time. Would I race in this shoe again? Absolutely, for a longer distance. I think marathon is really a sweet spot for this, probably a half marathon. After that, I would probably gravitate towards a more aggressive, lighter super shoe. But for Chicago, I have to say, this thing was pretty damn reliable. The outsole of the Hoka Bondi X is high abrasion rubber. We have that in the forefoot. We have some exposed EVA material in the midfoot, and we have some more high abrasion rubber in the heel. During the race, I felt like this shoe had very good traction. The only time that I did experience a problem was during water stations a little bit, where the ground was super slick with God only knows what. I mean, we had water on the ground, Gatorade on the ground, probably like goos and gels on the ground, all kinds of stuff. I did feel like this shoe got a little slippery in that situation, but to be fair, I think most shoes would. Now that I have about 80 miles in the Bondi X, the pattern is wearing down just a little bit, especially here at the top of the forefoot. And in that forefoot too, if you go further down, the pattern has sort of smoothed out a bit. And especially on the lateral side of the heel here, we do get a little bit, we did get a little bit smooth right here. The exposed EVA midsole held up fairly well. I mean, it's super dirty, but there's not a ton of fraying. There is a bit. One thing though that I do want to point out about this shoe, a negative and something that is kind of really annoying, is that it is a rock magnet. Rocks get stuck in this carbon fiber plate window here like you wouldn't believe. So after the majority of my runs, I'm definitely picking rocks out of this shoe. This rock, I guess, is a Chicago rock. Nice. The Hoka Bondi X is $199.95 on runningwarehouse.com, which I do understand is a pretty hefty price tag. I do think this is a good buy, but I also am aware of the fact that a lot of you probably don't want to part with $200 for a shoe that kind of falls into a weird category. I do think the shoe's great, but I really wish that they had made the price tag like $160, like the Endorphin Speed, because then I would tell you just go out and buy the shoe right now. I definitely think it's worth that. 200's a little steep. But if you are interested in picking up a pair of the Bondi X, you can do so at the links in the description of this video. Keep in mind these are affiliate links with Running Warehouse, however that doesn't mean much for you. It just helps out my channel so I can put you onto shoes that you probably wouldn't have bought before you watch this video. I went into Chicago Marathon Day loving the Bondi X, and I came out of the Chicago Marathon loving the Bondi X. It's not a super shoe, it's not a daily trainer, it's something in between, and I think it fills the gap for a lot of people who want the best of both worlds. And for that reason, I'm giving the Hoka Bondi X 4 out of 5 stars. I did knock it down, however, for the weight. I really think that while we don't need to make this shoe incredibly lightweight and super competitive, there is some work to be done here with the weight. I don't think that if they're gonna charge $200 for the shoe, that it should be heavier than my Bondi 7. That doesn't really make sense to me. I did knock it down a bit for price and for the fact that I really do not understand why this tongue is so short and why the top of my laces are touching my sock. All right, so now let's throw up a screen with the pros and the cons. For pros, I have the upper space, the surprising breathability, the versatility, the comfort of the shoe, and the ride of the shoe, that peppy feeling from that plate in that meta rocker, but with the soft feel from that CM EVA material. For cons, I have that it's heavy, the price of the shoe, and the tongue lacing area. But that's it. I hope this shoe isn't one and done. I hope they keep making it and keep improving it because I think that they have a winner here. I really, really like it. And I don't care who else does. Thank you, Bondi X, for getting me through 26.2 grueling miles in the Windy City. Okay, I probably shouldn't put this too close to my face because it's probably really dirty. Well, everyone, that concludes my full review of the Hoka Bondi X. If you enjoyed this video, please like it down below and subscribe. And when you're done with all that, hit the notifications bell so you can find out every time I upload a new video. I have some more videos for you next week, but in the meantime, get out there, get on the grind, and don't forget to run like Heller. See you next time.